Hi guys, this is a quick review of the ProblemSolvers mismatch adapters, and in this case it's the revision 1.2, I think. Yeah, 1.2, which is to adapt some Shimano XT brakes on the right hand side to a Sram X01 shifter, and on the left side XT brakes and a RockShox reverb underbar lever. So I'll show you how this works. In the package, you get a right and a left adapter, and you'll see how these work in just a minute. We've got a couple of machine bolts that will adjust the clamps, and you'll see how they adapt. Of course, it comes in the packaging. And then the most incredibly junky, low quality, cheap looking manual that I've ever seen. So I'm installing this on my 2018 Hightower LT, and with the clamps for the XT brakes and the X01 shifter, it's not the worst look in the world, but there's a lot of clutter on my bar that I'd like to get rid of. So I'm hoping that this problem solver solution will allow me to integrate two of these clamps into one. Here's a view from the top, again on the right-hand side. You can get a sense of what the installation looks like on the existing two-clamp solution. This is the installation currently on the left-hand side, where I've got my reverb post and my XT brake and both of the existing clamps. The first step in installation on this left-hand side is to take out the 4mm Allen bolt from the brake. And you can see there's this little tricky guy here if you haven't done this before. On the XT shifter, I'll zoom in, there's a little location where you have to push a small tool inside this hole to open up the clamp, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Here's another view of that special location on the XT shifter that you have to push in this little depressed location here to actually open the clamp up. You'll see with the bolt removed, the clamp will open to a small degree, but it's only when you push a tool into this little location where it says push to open that the clamp will come completely open. Make sure you do that instead of trying to manually open up that clamp wider than it should be without pushing the button. Then of course your reverb dropper comes off with a T25, and I'll show you that now. The next step is to open up the clamp on the brake fully, and then there's a little tiny spacer piece right here that has to be removed. Notice that on the back side there's some adhesive, and you can actually see here on the sort of left side of this where the adhesive is put to keep this spacer in place. When it's installed, you might be thinking when you look at it that there's some kind of small hex screw that's holding it in place, but that's not the case. You just have to kind of womp on it and pull out the adhesive, and this little adapter comes right out. With the brake clamp open, all you need to do is pop the adapter piece into the location where that little spacer came out. There you go, it just sort of slots right in, and what you'll see is it can only go in one direction. There's a little flange here on the left-hand side that keeps it from moving too far through this little channel, and what you see again is now I have two bolt holes. One, the larger one on the top of the screen here, will be for the reverb dropper post, and then the bottom is the integrated clamp for the brake. So now it's just a simple matter of putting it back together and getting it back on the bar. Be careful that you're using the left or the right spacer in the appropriate manner. It might be a little confusing if you're looking at the video, but when you have the pieces in your hand, it's pretty easy to see why you can't interchange those. You wouldn't be able to hang the either the shifter or the brake, depending on the side, in the right location if you had swapped these parts. Now here's the left side with the mismatch part in place. You can see now all that's left to be done is to attach the reverb shifter back onto this clamp, which is now integrated into a singular clamp along with the brake. It's looking pretty slick. So around the front, you can see it's just a real clean look. Sorry for the focus. It looks like just a single clamp, which it is, which is nice. I like it. Here's the bottom of the reverb. There's one step you need to take before you do the installation on the mismatch, and that is to basically remove this clamping piece because you're not going to need it. So you can see with another T25 screw, it attaches this clamp down to the base of the reverb body, this solid piece of aluminum. So it's a pretty easy one to just remove, and we'll screw that entire assembly back onto the mismatch adapter. It's not a big deal, but it's worth noting that on the left-hand side, this is the T25 screw that came out of the reverb, and on the right-hand side is the 4mm hex. I know it's a little bit glary. 4mm hex screw that came with the mismatch adapters. I'm actually going to be replacing the T25 with the 4mm Allen key screw here because, you know, on the rest of the adjustments on my my cockpit now are the 4mm Allen. I don't have any other T25 requirements, so it's nice to have one tool to make all those changes and not have to have two tools out so that I can just make a quick adjustment of the angle of the brake levers, for example. Now that I've screwed the reverb back into place and I have it all mounted on this singular clamp, I wanted to show you there's still a little bit of adjustability for the location of the reverb. So I'm going to try and do this with one hand. There's a slight ability to shift. I should kind of keep the brake lever in one position. Sorry, hard to do with one hand. And you can actually shift, in this case, the reverb slightly. There's a degree of adjustability. So if you want to move all of this apparatus around in different angles, you can. It's not just a fixed location. I think what the major advantage of this is you can bring the reverb adjustment or the handle to the left slightly more than you could with the two clamp solution because of the way that the parts underneath would collide. You wouldn't be able to get the reverb clamp close enough to the XT brake clamp. In this case, because they're one and the same, you know, they're right up next to each other. And so what that gives you is a much more natural position for your thumb. So instead of just barely reaching the end of the dropper lever, in my case previously, now I've got a much larger purchase on the flat part of the lever, and it feels a lot more comfortable. And now I'm just going to dial this into exactly the right position for both and tighten them up. That's it for the installation of the ProblemSolvers 1.2 mismatch adapters. I like this upgrade a lot. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe and click that like button. Thanks a lot.